Good evening and welcome to a meeting of your Mountainside Board of Education. Today is August 24th, 2021. In accordance with the state's sunshine law and state regulations, adequate notice of this meeting was provided by mailing a notice of the time, date, location, and instructions for accessing the meeting to the Union County local source and the Westfield Leader, filing same with the Borough Clerk, posting the notice at the main access door of the Mountainside Board of Education building and on the Mountainside Board of Education website. To protect the health and safety, no, we're not doing that anymore. We are streaming, but we're not conducting it in Zoom. These meetings are reserved for board deliberation and for review of items contained within the agenda. The board reserves the right to vote on action items. The board welcomes the participation of interested individuals. We encourage questions about specific school practices, incidents, or events to be brought directly to school administration. Public comment will be permitted at the beginning of the meeting for agenda items only. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement. In addition, time will be allotted at the end of the meeting for public comment on any item. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Dillon? Mr. Dillon? Dr. Guidi CiPietro? Mr. Hyman?
Here.
Ms. Pupo?
Here.
Mr. Ruban?
Here.
Ms. Shiano?
Here.
Mr. Venice?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. So at this time, I'd ask for a motion to go into executive session. It is 6:33. I anticipate us returning in an hour to continue the balance of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll see you in about an hour. Hello, we are returning from our executive session. Sorry, we were a little bit behind. At this time, I would ask that we all rise to salute the flag. Speak to the floor. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time, I would ask for a motion to approve our minutes from our regular and executive session meetings of July 27th.
So moved.
Second?
Any comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Dillon, Dr. Guidi C. Pietro,
Yes.
Mr. Hyman,
Yes.
Ms. Bupo,
Yes.
Mr. Ruban,
Yes?
Ms. Shiano,
I think I have to abstain because I wasn't at the last meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
good call. Mr. Vennis,
Yes.
motion carries.
First, I knew what to do.
No, you did good. You've done good. At this time, I would open the floor to public participation on agenda items only. Again, this is your opportunity to ask us questions about items on the agenda that are up for vote prior to us voting. Please come to the podium, state your name or address prior to making a statement or asking a question. Seeing that we have nobody in the audience, I will now move on to, I have no president's report, so I'll turn it over to Ms. Walling for her superintendent's report.
Great, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. So I have two things tonight. The first I want to share with you very briefly is the district's school self-assessment for determining grades under our anti-bullying Bill of Rights. I did share that with everybody in front of you. It is the long one, and the state, for some reason, puts it in like .2 font. And this
So
was
it
with
fits on
us
the
trying to make it as large as we could. Overall, what this does is it measures how we respond to any bullying situations, as well as all of the aspects of the anti-bullying Bill of Rights that we have to do. We self-evaluate ourselves against a variety of parameters, and out of a total of 78 potential maximum points, Deerfield School had a total of 74. Beechwood had 72, which gave us a district grade of 73 points. This actual document is also posted on the district website as mandated by the state. So it is available for anybody to take a look at. But what you will see are that we have achieved maximum points in a great number of areas, including our training on our policy, which we do with all of our staff. You will recall we did some training with the board. We have trained the PTO. Through the PTO, we have done some training with parents. Other staff instruction and training programs, we had high marks there. Curriculum and instruction on our HIB is, we had the maximum of 6 points. Our personnel, we had a maximum of 9, we had 8 and 7. To raise that would be for them to attend some additional trainings, which we will keep our eyes open for and see what's available through the state. Again, trainings were a little bit limited last year. In terms of our reporting procedure, we received max scores in both buildings, as well as in our investigating procedures and how we report out. So we really did very strongly across the board. And again, we could do a little bit more with our programs and approaches, which is what we will fold into our SEL as we come in this coming school year and look at for some other opportunities. Okay? Any questions about that portion?
Okay. No.
So SEL will help improve with the programs?
It potentially can, yes,
Okay.
because it will give us a little bit more opportunity for exposure for our children and understanding of the ways and the initiatives and things that we have in place.
I'm sure this year or first year coming back to somewhat, a little normal, I'm sure SEL is very important this year.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I was just going to ask, it says 2019-20 on here?
Yes,
So we get these reports a year?
behind.
Behind, okay.
We actually did the self-assessment last December.
Got it.
So in December, we were self-assessing ourselves for the year before, and then these scores come out in the summer after it.
Got it.
Yes, as a matter of fact, when my secretary was posting it, she's like, you know you have the wrong year. I said, no, actually, we don't, and so we had to talk about where that came from. Okay? All right, so I'd like to take this time, and Mr. Whitaker, if you could, give me the screen. I'm going to share with everyone our reopening road forward plan. I feel like we're at the movies. Does anybody have popcorn? Yeah. Just one moment for us to have the. Okay. As it's getting started, I want to remind the board and those who are watching us on our live stream this evening that this plan was shared out in June as part of our requirements as we began to plan for September. What I'm going to share with you this evening has been updated, and it continues to be updated. There are some things I'll share with you tonight that I updated just this afternoon when Executive Order 253 came out. So we do have some information that is constantly changing, and I do want you to be aware of that as it is updated. After presenting this evening to you, this plan and this slideshow will be on our school website. It will be emailed out to our parents, out to our staff, so that everybody is clear and aware of what we have going. Shall we turn it off and turn it back on again?
Yeah, we have to wait 10 minutes for the bulb to cool. I just,
Mhm.
Like cooling your bulbs.
oops, sorry.
So in the meantime, I think the vice president wanted to sing us a song.
Ooh,
Oh, I did.
are you going to tap dance for the audience too?
I was never good at tap dance. Other dances I am good at, but not tap.
Okay,
My hands on this one more
please
time.
go right ahead.
Yeah, it doesn't want to duplicate.
Make it out and come back in.
We can put the live stream on our computer. Oh, you can't.
Can't
You're gonna
share it
film
through.
that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I'm watching us on the computer.
How do we look?
We're far away right now.
There we go.
There we go. All right. As my children would say, unplug it and plug it back in. All right, I won't move the computer. All righty. So I would like to share with you, and please understand that everything that I am sharing is under accordance with any current executive orders and any guidance, and is always subject to change, both update and adjustment. So one of the key points, one of the things that we are very excited about is that we are returning to full-day in-person education every single day. That is our goal. That is where we are starting from. This came from Governor Murphy's announcements back in May, and then we build off of that. Parts of this plan were created with a lot of different input. We had input from faculty, input from my administrators, input from our Department of Health, our school physician. We had our Mountainside Reopening Committee, which had representatives from you, the board, our teaching staff, our administration, our parents. So we looked at all critical operations and looking at how to best create our road forward. Our commitment, our overarching goal, is to provide students with as regular a school day as possible in a manner that fully supports their academic and emotional needs while keeping everyone's health and safety in mind. There were these core principles: health and safety, engagement, learning, inclusivity, wellness, and empathy. All of those are kind of driving factors that work for us as Mountainside to begin with, and even more so as we come back to our full-day instruction. So I'm going to share with you some of the details and of different aspects. Mostly, too, I'm going to point out differences, things that may have changed from last year. And I say that because we were very successful. If you recall, we ended the year with 96% of our students physically attending school in person. So many of these things may look similar to last year because they were processes that worked and supported our staying open and providing instruction. So screening does continue. However, I am pleased to share that we will be requiring our parents, our guardians, our faculty not to complete a daily screening form anymore. It will be a monthly attestation. So it will be a monthly sign-off that you know you are responsible for screening yourself, your children, for any signs of COVID, for any concerning health situations, and to stay home in the event that you are not feeling well. So that will be sent out monthly. The very first one will actually go out on Friday when we open our Genesis parent portal. It will be part of one of the required forms that parents have to sign off when they are getting into that aspect of learning. As we've said, we are going to have our beginning of the year forms through the Genesis parent portal with the ultimate ticket, the prize, if you will, of learning who your child's homeroom teacher is. Once the forms are signed off, you will be able to access all of that information, middle school schedules, things of that sort. The visual screenings will continue. Again, it was always done in a respectful way. It's just the opportunity for our staff to take a look. Does a child look like they're not feeling well? It's that first emotional check-in of the day. How is everybody doing? If anybody seems to be exhibiting symptoms, it is not the teachers who would then diagnose. We would send them to our nurses, our health officials, and they would then conduct an exam, just as they did last year, to make a determination of any concerns. Same with our staff. If anybody's not feeling well, we first would want them to stay home, and if they feel symptoms after coming to school, they would see the school nurse immediately. And anyone who meets the exclusion criteria, as we did in the past, has to have a negative COVID-19 test prior to returning to school. So if symptoms are exhibited, a negative test, then they would be coming back. Masking is in place. We know this. The requirements are implemented in accordance with the guidance that is in place when school is in session, which currently is Executive Order 251. And this order has been affirmed. We have had affirmation of this order and its validity by our board attorney, the DOE, the Union County Superintendent, the Westfield Regional Health Department, and the New Jersey School Boards Association. So what this order means is that school staff, students, and visitors are required to wear a face mask at all times when indoors and on school buses. The school bus requirement is actually a federal requirement. It is not one that is coming from the state. And this is regardless of vaccination status. There are limited exceptions to the requirements, and they're within the executive order, very similar to last year. With that, please understand, face masks may be removed when an individual is engaged in an activity that cannot be performed while wearing a mask. So this is going to include eating. So our students will not be masked when they are eating lunch or having a snack, when they are drinking, when they are playing a musical instrument that would be obstructed by a face mask. So when they are engaged in these activities, especially, and we'll get to that in a little bit, in our cafeterias, the students will be 6 feet apart because that is our close contact definition when masks are off. That is part of the health department guidelines for identifying close contacts for our students. While outdoors, masks are not required. So that is a change from last year. So when our students are outdoors, whether vaccinated or unvaccinated, masks are not required. Should a student or a staff member choose to continue to keep one on, absolutely, that is optional. So this would cover things such as recess. This would cover outdoor gym class. This would cover if a teacher takes their class outside for an instructional period, a snack break, a mask break. Any of those times, the children do not need to have them on. Teachers will continue to incorporate mask breaks and the use of outdoor space for instruction whenever feasible. Here in the district, we will be continuing to enforce physical distancing of 6 feet between rows of desks to the greatest extent possible. We talked about this last year. We have the advantage of large class sizes and reasonable class sizes and large classrooms, which allow us to maintain that 6 foot when students are seated at their desks in the vast majority. There will be some middle school classes, just by nature of going back to a regular schedule, where there may be some additional students, where we may have to compress that distance a little bit, but by no means will we go down to the 3 feet that we are hearing about in many other schools. If we hit 5, I think that would be a lot because of how we are able to do this. As I said, if students' masks are removed, we would be maximizing this. Another example, and I didn't have it on the other, would be like chorus. Because of students singing, we would always be looking to maximize it, and again, ideally looking to utilize outdoor space whenever possible. In the classroom, however, when instructional needs dictate it, students will be allowed to work at closer than 6 feet, but not less than 3 feet while masked. So that actually is one of the instructional benefits that comes with this requirement for masking, is that if everyone is wearing their mask appropriately, and our other mitigation factors are in place, our ventilation systems, our sanitizing, all of those things, students can be at a 3 foot distance and not be considered a close contact. So for instructional purposes, for the teachers who want to then be utilizing, whether it is a book club, whether it is in a science lab, again, we still keep in mind that timeline, but it gives us some flexibility in our instructional practices, which actually works well. As I just mentioned about the close contact timelines, because of the masking, that timeline has a CDC exception, which states that students will not be less than 3 feet from others with masks on for greater than 15 minutes cumulative over 24 hours. Last year, we looked at that as a 6 foot, okay? The exception, however, please be aware, does not apply to teachers, staff, or any other adults when indoors. It is the CDC exception only applies to students. And in any situation where face masks are not worn, the distancing for close contact timelines, as I've already said, will be adjusted to that 6 feet, so that we are looking, our goal always with every piece of this is stay open, full day, in-person instruction with as few children as possible or adults needing to quarantine or miss those opportunities. So that is why this is a key component to our plan. Along those lines, arrival and dismissal procedures will be implemented, very similar to last year. So our students will enter and exit through their designated doors. So for example, if you remember here at Deerfield, our middle schoolers came in at the end of their middle school hallway. Our 3rd and 4th graders came in through a different door, and our 4th and 5th graders came in through a different. So we had our students at a couple of different doors. It gave opportunity for space. They will also report directly to their homeroom, which is what we used last year. It was very helpful. We will have staff monitoring the hallways, and at Beechwood for dismissal, we will be utilizing pickup patrol again as a method for picking up students at the end of the day. Signs will be placed to remind everyone of our protocols. As far as cohorts, so the guidelines recommend keeping groups of students together to the greatest extent possible. K-5, that naturally happens anyway. So we will have our students remain homeroom-based to the greatest extent practicable, which really is a pre-COVID process. That's how we did it. We would continue that. In the middle school and with our related arts, we are going back to our regular scheduling practices. So our middle school students, 6th through 8th grade, will have a regular schedule. So there will be some interaction between cohorts and homerooms, but our mitigation level of being able to look at the distancing and the fact that we have the masking really does give us a couple of layers of mitigation that we feel comfortable bringing this back in, because we feel that the educational and the social benefits of this are very valuable. Important for this, though, are seating charts. So if we do need to do contact tracing, seating charts will be maintained, they will be updated. Mask breaks and outdoor instruction where students can be unmasked will be incorporated as appropriate. So, for example, middle school, if you had a student in 6th grade last year, they used outside doors to move between classes. So the teachers, we've already spoken with some, would continue that practice and the students could take off their masks as they're moving between classes. It's a natural break and it's a natural opportunity. So all of those will be factored in as we do our plans. Again, gym, music, band, use of outdoor space will be encouraged as long as the weather and instructional topic permits it. In terms of lunch and recess, this, I think, is going to be our very most interesting part of reopening. We haven't had lunch in a year and a half, and we're doing it in a different way. So it's going to absolutely take a little bit of adjustment, and there's going to be some hiccups along the way, but we are confident in our reopening plan on this. Important to note, the district is continuing to participate with SSO and provide free lunch for all interested students. This is a federal program. It is funded through the federal government with reimbursement to the district. Students will be spaced 6 feet apart because masks will be off, and it will alleviate close contact and any quarantining concerns. In speaking with Mascios, our lunch provider, in trying to organize and lay this out, the first month of school, we're going to limit our options a little bit. We're going to have 3 options per day. There will always be a hot lunch, there will be a hot swap, and a cold swap. So we will limit our options a bit, and a la carte items such as snacks are not going to be sold right away. The purpose for this is we need to assess the flow of service. We need to meet timing. We need to look at our locations. We need to look at our schedules and trying to get lunch for all of our students in 30-minute time blocks. We need some time to get our feet under us. Then in October, we will reevaluate it. If things are running smoothly the 3rd week of September, we'll reevaluate it. We just want to get through our process here. Lunches will take place in various locations. So here at Deerfield, we are going to be utilizing the cafeteria. We're going to be utilizing the APR room. And in some cases, we'll be utilizing classrooms. When possible, we would utilize outdoors. Again, I'm not sure that will happen in the first couple of weeks of school because we are figuring out how are we getting lunches sent to the classrooms? How are we managing this so that everybody is eating within their time? Because that is our most important piece. At Beechwood, it will be the cafeteria and some classrooms. And for the most part, not every grade, because again, here at Deerfield, you have 6 grades. And if every grade ate at a different time, we would be starting lunches probably around 8:45 and not finishing before 2 o'clock. So we do need to have a little bit of overlap, but as much as possible, we will give some rotation so that people will have those opportunities to be seated in areas with other classrooms. At the middle school, the students may choose where they would like to sit in their designated location. So for example, if a grade level is separated, some in the APR and some in the cafeteria, they can't move between because for contact tracing, we need to know where these students are. And God forbid there's an emergency. But if you are in the cafeteria, they would have options in that location. And again, if we can expand it beyond other grades, we would look at it, but at this moment, it's very important to us from the social perspective for there. Tables and surfaces will be cleaned and sanitized between meal services. Students will be given time to sanitize their hands. Our water fountains, we will continue to keep them disabled as we did last year, but the water bottle fillers, if you recall, we have those throughout both buildings. Those will remain open. Recess will take place daily, and it will be supervised by their classroom teachers. So the teachers will have some options as to when and how they want it, where they want it. They may split it up throughout the day because that's where they feel it's best for their children. They will identify those times. And as I already said, masks not required when students are outside for recess. As we know, Mountainside always sends out a class list of supplies. The students will be encouraged to bring in their own. However, another difference is, and this came from our school physician, that there's really no expectation to limit material sharing. So, again, we've learned a lot in a year. There's a lot we didn't know. But at this time, we feel that we don't need to necessarily limit things being shared. However, we may look to increase sanitization of shared materials. Should we have increased local transmission? Should rates rise? We always want to keep safety first. And we will always encourage our students to sanitize their hands after touching shared items. So this might include gym equipment, lab materials, classroom libraries, art supplies. So after using it, sanitizing their hands, that is a good practice, and that will again help the safety side and health side, with frequent reminders occurring. Again, just to remind the board, one of the nice things is the overwhelming majority of your classrooms here in both buildings have sinks in them. So the ability for students to wash their hands in the classroom and maintain that hygiene is very critical as well. As I shared, students on school buses are required to wear face masks. That is the federal mandate. We are going to continue with assigned seating to the greatest extent feasible with that distancing. That was critical for us last year. When we had a situation where a student had a positive case and they were a bus rider, we were able to isolate where that child sat, quarantine a limited number of students, whereas without an assigned seating, we would have had to quarantine that entire bus. So that is a critical piece that has really worked to our benefit, and we see the value of continuing it. Accommodations of any specific need are always in accordance with our laws, and that would go through the school nurses. We'll continue the cleaning and disinfecting. And this is also going through our Durham. We connect with Durham as to our expectations because they are our service provider for the buses. Promoting our hand hygiene and respiratory etiquette. Some of this is a little bit of a repeat, but I do want you to continue to understand that we will have hand sanitizer available throughout locations in the building as well as the classrooms. We follow the expectations for the percentage of alcohol that is in it so that it is a safe sanitizer for students. Hand washing being promoted frequently, and looking for signage and reminders from the health office. We will continue to adhere to our facility cleaning practices and the procedure manuals that we put in place last year. So ways that we keep our buildings clean, we disinfect surfaces and objects that are frequently touched. So again, cutting down on any opportunity, even though we're not looking at shared objects, the more something is touched, the more germs there are. So if the concept of keeping the cleanliness and being able to help support that is very, very important to us. So cleaning surfaces such as doorknobs, light switches, sink handles, countertops. Our windows will be open when feasible to allow for greater air circulation. We know that fresh air is helpful. We will continue our AC units according to manufacturer recommendations with the use of MERV 11 filters. You may recall last year we were able to increase our MERV. We started the year at about a MERV 7, MERV 8. Upon evaluating it, looking at the greatest maximum of what our units could take, we were able to elevate to a MERV 11, and we will continue that practice across both buildings. Just a quick reminder, we did this last year. We installed automatic faucets and flushometers on our toilets in all bathrooms to complement the automatic soap dispensers. So this just cut down on touch points to help maintain that safety. In classrooms where there's a switching of classes, so this is predominantly the middle school, as well as fifth grade does some switching, our related arts, our students and staff will continue to clean the desks at the end of each class prior to the next group of children coming in. We will be sanitizing our bathrooms, We will keep an isolation area as necessary. So again, if a student is, or staff are exhibiting symptoms, we want to keep them in a safe space, but also want to keep them removed from others so that we do not have contact. Plexiglass barriers, really, we utilize those mostly in our offices. For our office staff, we have not needed to use them in any locations for our students. They are not on their desks. We do not have them in the cafeterias. Masks, PPE, all remains available for us, and we have a good stock of it. We actually received a call from the mayor the other day who mentioned that they have a lot of additional face masks. So should we need some, they would be more than happy to donate for us. So we are very pleased with the opportunities of what we have. School activities. So all of our extracurricular activities, all of our athletics, everything is going to be offered and implemented to the greatest extent possible. Tonight on the agenda, you're going to be asked to approve our stipend list, and that includes some of our sports. It includes some of our before and after school activities. So we are looking to continue those to the greatest extent possible while maintaining distancing, if indoors, masking. All of our safety protocols will be in place. When the students are finished, the teacher will wipe down the desks before the start of the day. If it is a before the day, a morning type of a program, all of those things will be in place. Same is expected for any outside organizations that ask to use our buildings. So whether it's Girl Scouts, whether it's Boy Scouts, they would be asked to follow those same protocols, and we will be providing them with information regarding those. So all of those guidance can be hyperlinked here. Consideration will be given to scheduling field trips as health and safety guidelines permit. None of them have been scheduled at this time, and the reality is most of them happen next spring. Have been already speaking with others about talking about, might you go someplace outdoors? Might you look at a different opportunity where there is greater ability to space? And wherever the children go, we are required to follow their guidelines as well. So if someplace that we go has stricter guidelines than are currently in place for schools at that time, it does not become an option. We follow the guidelines of whatever the facility would be that we would be looking to potentially go. So those are things we would give consideration to it, but we always want to keep health and safety first and look at what we have in place. When we look at our parent meetings, our visitation, again, those outside groups, we are looking for, at the beginning of our year, for our IEP, our 504, our INRS meetings to remain virtual, unless a parent or an administrator or the child study team asks for it in person. If somebody were to ask, absolutely. But I will tell you that the feedback that we've gotten from both the staff and the parent side is that having that virtual option for meetings is lovely. If you are a working parent, you do not have to take a full day off. You can schedule a meeting time, remove yourself from your work environment for a half an hour, attend the meeting, and then back into whatever you have at that time. So we like that option. We are also looking at offering a remote option time slots during parent-teacher conferences. So again, if a parent is unable to get childcare and it is easier for them to Zoom in for a parent-teacher conference, we will be offering that option as well. We are looking to limit non-essential visitors. So again, we want to maintain our health and our safety first. We want our children here full day. We want that to be our emphasis. Any visitors or volunteers who are determined necessary are required to follow all district protocols, including masking and social distancing guidelines. So an example, we have been having conversations about allowing parent volunteers back here in the media center, because we know that having those volunteers able to help shelve our books and get those going is what helps educationally for the children to have access. Okay? We've had conversations as well, for example, if there's an activity where a parent volunteer could come and the activity was happening outdoors, we would always look to encourage that rather than, so there's new ways to imagine and new ways to continue some of these practices. All school and PTO activities will be incorporated as feasible. within the health and safety guidelines. And again, they may be adapted based upon community transmission. So if we have a situation where there is a rise, things may need to be adapted. But as I was just alluding to, the use of outdoor space would be encouraged for events. And then again, following our guidelines that may need to be in place for outside groups. Contact tracing does continue to exist. So if we do have a positive or suspected case, just as we did last year, the district will implement contact tracing and the policies that are created. We always work in conjunction with the Westfield Regional Health Department, and the things that will help us along these ways are things I've already shared. Maintaining our cohorts, solid schedules with seating charts, things that can help update and help the nurses in this process. Quarantine requirements will be followed per the state guidelines. And as I already shared, the teachers will enforce close contact guidelines and timelines to help with this. The district will continue, we will continue our regular communication, both to the regional health department, our school physician, and the school community. So updates, information will be shared through our board meetings, email blasts, weekly newsletters, social media, all of these opportunities to keep everybody as informed as possible. This exclusion criteria really, other than the last bullet, remains exactly as last year, but it's always a good refresher for everybody to understand. So if there are COVID symptoms being observed, and that is why the child is excluded from school, an alternate diagnosis will not be accepted without a negative test. That was in place last year, it continues. If you have a positive diagnosis, the exclusion criteria from the Department of Health is a 10-day exclusion from onset of symptoms or positive test results. If you have a known exposure, unvaccinated students, staff who are identified as close contacts are excluded for a minimum of 7 days and could return on day 8 if they get a negative PCR test. Otherwise, it is a 10-day isolation. However, I do need to share, and I was on a call this morning with the Department of Health and the county. As of last week, our region went back into orange. So at this time, due to that, we are back to a 14-day exclusion with no test out option. And that is the guidelines that we followed last year. The minute we return back to a yellow, which we all hope is very quickly, then we can have the test out option of what we look at. If you are fully vaccinated, now for us right now, this applies mostly to our staff and 7th and 8th graders, some 6th graders. If you are fully vaccinated and are considered a close contact, you do not need to quarantine, as long as you do not have symptoms. Although I just put this in there more, this is not the district saying it, but I put this in there more as informational for everybody. The CDC right now is recommending testing 3 to 5 days after exposure to a positive individual for your own health to check. A big change for us this year is that unvaccinated members of exposed students or staff, it's what we called last year our contacts of contacts. It was like our sibling rule. They will no longer be excluded or asked to quarantine, except while the family is awaiting a COVID test result. So what that means is if a student is identified as a close contact because, say, a friend or another person in their class, somebody was positive, that student as a close contact falls under the exposure category. But if that student has siblings in the district, last year we did request that those siblings also remain home. That is no longer going to be the case. The siblings would come in, except for the time that that student was waiting for a test result. Because should that test result come back positive, that sibling now is a close contact. So during just while that period of time that a test result is pending, it is the best practice for them to remain home for that day or so until that test result comes in so that they are not exposing others should they now be a close contact of somebody who's positive. I know it gets a little bit tricky, and we walk our parents through that whenever that situation comes up. The school nurses are excellent about walking through that timeline with anybody.
You want us to save questions to the end?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I'm getting there.
Just started like 12.
I'm sure, I am
We
sure.
got notes.
Yeah.
I am sure there are, and I'm not surprised. I'm trying, and I tried to condense it as much, and I know it's hefty, and I appreciate it, but I just want to make sure that everybody is as clear as we can be on this. So as we know, the governor came out and said that there will not be a remote instruction option. So parents cannot say to us, we do not want our child to come to school in person. They cannot choose remote instruction as their instructional format for this year. However, the reality is we are going to have times where students have to quarantine. We are very, very hopeful that with the close contact situation and the fact that we can expand way beyond the 3 feet with the masks, that this will be few and far between. Okay, we are very hopeful that this will be the situation. However, if a student is required to quarantine for exposure or documentation of a positive case, instruction will be provided virtually beginning the second day of verified absence. This is going to look a little bit different this year because remember, we are back in full day. Our staff is teaching to the students that are directly in front of them. So the instruction is going to follow a similar model to what is utilized very, very commonly and recognized as an acceptable process, which is very similar to a home instruction process. So in this, instruction would include 5 hours of live instruction per week. It would be at least 1 hour each for the core academic subjects, and then at least 5 additional hours per week of guided learning experiences. The live instruction will take place after school hours and be provided by a certified teacher. Tonight on the board agenda, you are approving a large number of teachers who have already expressed an interest in providing our home instruction, be it for this or any other reason this year. And I anticipate that we will be approving more in the next month or so. The goal is for a teacher at that, either the child's homeroom teacher or a teacher at that grade level to be the one providing that direct instruction because it's meaningful at that time. If it's at the middle school and, for example, that content area could not, we would look above and below, again with the goal of having somebody with that content specialty. Should that not be available, we would look beyond. The guided learning experiences may include Google Classroom, asynchronous assignments. It could include bookwork, the use of technology to provide audio or visual connections to assignments and instruction. We feel that this approach will provide a more personalized instruction without students having to be in front of a computer all day. It also allows the teacher to continue providing high-quality instruction to all students without having to split the time between those who are on the screen and those who are in front of them. Now, where might it be different? If an entire class needs to quarantine, an entire grade level needs to quarantine, then that instruction would revert back to a synchronous type of instruction to the full class during school hours. It would follow the full school day. In 7th and 8th grade, we recognize that we may have a group of students where maybe the whole class typically would have been quarantined, but half the class, a third of the class, a quarter of the class, they're vaccinated. So those students don't need to stay home. But a large portion of the class may not be vaccinated and does. So in those types of situations, we might also use that synchronous instruction format. This applies to when the district requires a student to quarantine. This does not apply to vacations. So a family choosing to go on vacation, which is discouraged anyway during the school year, that would not provide remote instruction upon their return, nor while they're away. Vacations are considered unexcused absences as per our typical policy, and we would continue that as well. I'm almost to the end, I promise. This is the slide that I was updating even up until 4 o'clock this afternoon. So we will provide the school community with a list of all local agencies that offer testing. This is being put together by the school nurses to share information. We will also inform the community of testing and vaccination availability through a variety of venues. Vaccinations are not required for student attendance or participation in activities. However, and this one changed just in the past 24 hours, as you are aware, that when the governor came out with a new executive order for all state employees, that staff vaccination requirements are going to follow the new executive order. It is a 9-page document. I have it linked here, but in very short, what it is requiring is that beginning October 18th, staff are either required to be vaccinated and therefore show us proof of their vaccination, or submit proof of COVID-19 screening testing at least once a week. So they will have to show proof of COVID testing if they are unvaccinated, or give us their vaccination status. This is brand new. I fully expect more guidance and more information to be forthcoming on the process and what this looks like, but this is updated to the most recent information. And we are going to ask, as part of our health information at the beginning of the year, the school nurses will be asking for parents to voluntarily provide information on status or proof of vaccine if their children are of an eligible age. So right now, that is 12 and over. It will be kept under the same confidentiality as all of our other health information, but it is very helpful to the school nurse should there be a close contact situation, should there be positive cases, and we are able to then identify what students need to stay home, don't need to stay home, and go from there. So with all of that, we're actually here to educate our kids. So I want everybody just, the last 2 slides really, I want to get away from the details and just remind everybody that we are here to support students where they are at. We are here to provide those opportunities for students to get support where they need to. And we recognize that while we had 96% of our kids in seats all of last year, it wasn't a typical year. We also recognize that 4% of our population never stepped foot through our door for an entire school year plus. So we need to be aware of those needs, and we are very cognizant of that, and our staff is preparing for that. So we have, as you see on this screen, a whole lot of different supports that are in place that run the gamut from the regular classroom to intervention and referral services, INRS, to our basic skills, our academic support, to enriched opportunities for gifted and talented, and our special education supports as well. So all of those are ready, they are here, and as parents or as teachers identify needs, we would run along that continuum. And the final piece that goes with it is the social and emotional side. And as somebody mentioned earlier when I was talking about the HIB, this is front and center. Our opening day for our staff, we are bringing in a keynote speaker, Alan Brown, who spoke with us my first year here. And his entire opening for our staff is about resilience. Resilience for our staff and resilience for our students, and how we support that. So we are looking at that. We are also going to bring Alan Brown back for some virtual staff development during faculty meetings this year, and that topic is going to be on anxiety, how to recognize and how to support the students in your classroom who may have some anxiety. So these are all pieces that align with that SEL side and align with us making sure we don't just jump back in as if nothing has ever happened. This is very vital for our success, and when we have that communication and we have those relationships built, the sky's the limit for all of us. So these are things that we will be providing. We also this year, I'm very excited, under some of our funding, we are partnering with Rutgers Behavioral Health. We approved that a month or 2 ago at the board. And they are going to give us a clinician one day per week, who will be supporting our school counselors, will be supporting students for more specific identified needs. We'll also be able to be a resource to parents. We are looking for opportunities for them to provide some parent training as well. So really important to us that we take into consideration all of these pieces as we build our road forward, as we get ourselves ready, and we are confident that with everybody's support and partnership, we will be even more productive this year. And while it's not easy to imagine, what we accomplished last year, how huge it was, I know we're going to go even further this year. So kind of as I said, we know there's going to be unexpected turns. We are ready for it. I've shared with people, we did the heavy lift already. We know what last year took, and we were successful. So I am very confident that with our focus on health and safety, we will continue to deliver really meaningful educational experiences for everybody.
Thank you.
Okay,
And with that, we'll open it up to questions for Ms. Waller.
one quick one.
Wait, you want to do it by slide or by person?
We can go by person.
Whatever works best for everybody.
Carmine's hands up. He's first.
Okay. How will we handle the parent? You say at a 90% enrollment, basically, near the end of the year, who will say, I'm not sending my children to school. I don't feel it's safe. Now, what happens if they expect some kind of home instruction? And if we're not going to give that home instruction, how will we measure their academic if the parent says, I'm going to homeschool? How do we know the criteria to promote them if they want to keep them home for the year to the next grade? Do we have a plan?
So there's a couple of pieces. Home instruction is a very, very specific policy. So for a parent to for a child to qualify for home instruction, there are very set parameters from the medical standpoint that would have to be met for us as a school district to be providing them with home instruction. If a parent chooses to homeschool, that happens all the time, and they would disenroll their child because they're homeschooling them. And once they are disenrolled, it is not the district's responsibility to measure growth until such time as the child re-enters. When the child re-enters, at that time, we would basically assess them like we would a new student who walks through the door. We would measure and take a look at where their growth is, where they are, and we would give them education where they're at.
Would we test them to see if they measure, say they're in second grade, that they meet basic criteria for third grade?
We would enter them as a third grader because that is where they would come back in. And just like we would for our AIM program, as we would for our Gifted and Talented program, our beginning of the year benchmarks would be exactly the same for that child. And should they demonstrate a need, we would provide supports for them as needed when they come back in.
Because I have a feeling you'll have a few of those.
We may,
Okay.
we may.
Another question was, you said that you sanitize everything they touch and so forth. But for example, you have phys ed, and they're using a basketball. The kids are playing during the gym class, and everybody's touching that basketball. What are you going to do, clean the basketball after everyone touches it?
No, that's where the change was. Last year, to be honest with you, we did. We limited use of a variety of materials last year because we weren't sure what we were working with at that time. The school physician has not recommended that, does not feel there is a need. The materials are fine because there is not a contact concern. What we will do instead is ask the children to sanitize or wash their hands at the end of class. So as they're leaving the gym, they will use the hand sanitizer. So now their hands are sanitized and clean, and off they go to their next spot. We are no longer going to be sanitizing equipment.
So it doesn't matter how many times different students touch it? Okay. Okay. I had another one, I don't remember, but let one of the others.
Okay?
I just have a couple questions.
Sure.
One, this doesn't have to do with the slideshow, but I'm sure every single parent that's either watching this or wants to probably know, what time will Genesis open on Friday? Because I'm sure anybody who can
I'm
see
actually
this,
sending out a voicemail tomorrow. I already know
yeah,
this.
is like,
My goal is 9 a.m.
okay.
Okay, but again,
be
you're
down by
going
what,
to
9:01?
have to.
Yeah, 9:01, it'll
And,
be
and
crashed.
Mr. Whitaker and I already know that there's going to be people going, I didn't get it, where's my
Uh-huh.
email? And we're going to be updating that, and we're
Okay.
going to be prepared for that. We've already had that conversation. So it is a fair question, that is my goal. I'll be honest, we are doing final touches. Middle school schedules, as you can imagine, are very, very unique. So we are giving time to, because with the Genesis Parent Portal, schedules should be available as well.
Okay. Okay, so
So-
that was
No,
just a
that's,
question
and it's
that
absolutely,
I know
but I
everyone's-
already figured I
Yeah.
was sending out a voicemail
Yeah, yeah,
tomorrow
yeah.
with this slideshow.
Right.
To say, and you get your golden ticket at the end
Exactly,
of
right.
signing all of these papers.
Exactly. Okay, just a couple of questions for
Sure.
the slideshow. I know that at the middle school level, I don't believe there's normally like a snack time or whatever. Will there be, just because you're adjusting lunch times, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure some of the middle schoolers may be eating earlier than they normally would be in
Mm-hmm.
the past, will middle schoolers have an opportunity? I mean, I know it sounds a little babyish, but depending on the timing, should they be bringing a snack to
That
school?
will come out, again, Mrs. Jenks and Mrs. Vierscheling will be sending out those day-to-day types of things. But yes,
Okay.
we actually talked about it at this moment, and I did not get eyes on the final schedule. But the last time we spoke, 8th grade was actually our first lunch.
Okay,
And Mrs. Jenks very appropriately said, let's face it, most middle schoolers don't eat a great breakfast.
right.
So eating first lunch is actually not a bad thing, but we know that that means a late time in the day. So when speaking with the teachers that I've met with so far, one of the conversations was, it could be a working snack. It could be, if they're in a classroom where they're 6 feet apart.
Correct.
They could be, while reading independently, they could be having something very quick. So we have talked about that. The logistics of it, I don't want to speak to for the principals,
Sure.
but it absolutely is something that we've discussed.
Okay. When students are outside, I know they don't need to wear masks whether they're vaccinated or not. Do they have to social distance?
So again, social distance directions will stay in place. So without masks, it does revert back to the 6 feet, but it's also 6 feet, 15 minutes or more. So if the students are out for a shorter period of time, and that's why part of the reason we're giving control of the recess to the teachers is if they are outside for a shorter period of time than that 15, then it does not play as much into social distancing. So do they have to stand that? No. Should they be on top of each other? Absolutely not, because that's never, that's a recipe for,
Yeah.
problems to begin with. So between that, there is that happy medium. And that's what we anticipate happening.
Now, what if the students are vaccinated? Because you may have a group of middle schoolers that are a bunch of friends that are all vaccinated that may not socially distance.
But again, that comes down to the privacy side of the vaccinations, so we're
Okay.
not going to get into, well, you're not vaccinated, so you're over here.
Okay,
And you guys are vaccinated because you're over here.
okay, okay.
Okay?
Outside visitors, if you have them coming into the building, will they have to show their vaccination status, and staff in schools by October 18th either have to have a negative COVID test or be vaccinated?
That's a good question. We know already, we have already talked about them doing a screening, as
Okay.
they've done previously. I have not read through the executive order clearly enough. I do know that the executive order covers all staff, but there may be, I do not know yet whether there's an exception for visitors, so I will look into that one further.
Okay. I'm sorry for these questions.
No, no,
but
no,
hopefully
No,
I'm-
you're answering
Yeah,
some of
look at
mine.
this, they're all crossing off.
No, you're
They're crossing off theirs,
Can I
so.
show you mine? Because then maybe I can cross them off.
Yeah,
keep
as
going.
far as COVID symptoms go, I know we said that if a student exhibits a COVID symptom, they possibly could be sent home from school. We know that COVID, every single symptom you have more or less is a COVID symptom. So I know there's 2 levels of COVID symptoms. The level 1's, like if you have the cough, you immediately probably need to go get a COVID test. The other symptoms, like maybe you have, I'm thinking off the top of my head, but like a headache and you're, like a headache. If a child comes into the nurse's office and like, I have a headache, can I go home because I just have a headache, but are we going to require them to get a COVID test?
So the exclusion criteria is a one of that larger, two of the others.
Okay,
So it's not a single, so in that other level of criteria that you were just referring to,
yep,
the exclusion criteria for the nurses is very specific, that the student to be excluded is showing two or more symptoms.
Okay.
Versus just a single symptom.
okay. And then that kind of ties in with the testing. I know we said we're not doing contacts of contacts anymore with the siblings, but we're asking that while we're awaiting a test result, that the sibling stays home as well. However, if you look at some of the guidelines, you need to wait a certain number of days before you get a test. So if you're saying, you know, if I were exposed to somebody today, CDC does not recommend that I go get tested today. They recommend that I go and I wait 5 days after I've been exposed. So if that's the case, then the contact of the contact has to stay home the entire time? Because that's a rule that.
No, you're absolutely right. And that is a level of it that I have not discussed with the school nurses, and it's another level of it that I will take back to the nurses and look
Okay.
at with the Department of Health
Okay,
as to how that falls in. You're right, because it's one thing if it's a quick 24-hour test,
right.
and we have that information, it's only a day, or not even a day, versus being out the full
Right,
5.
because you don't also want students
Right.
to just get inaccurate tests and say, okay, no, I took my, the COVID test and it's a negative.
Yep.
But really, it was too soon for them to test. But people may do that if they're saying, I want the siblings back in school. Will, at the middle school level, there will be use of lockers?
So we are going to
Crossing out.
assign
Yeah, me too.
lockers. Oh, got one, bingo! So what we have decided, and Mrs. Jenks actually met with the middle school teachers to discuss this,
Okay,
because I wanted her to have that ability and what the teachers needed to utilize. So the plan at the moment is, and it's kind of similar to our lunch, that we're getting ourselves back in the door and we want to get ourselves finished. So lockers will be assigned. At the beginning of the year, they are looking at most likely only using them, for example, if you are on soccer, and therefore you have a backpack and you have an extra bag, winter, the extra things. Because they seemed to move very well with backpacks last year, and it actually did not impede education. So we are going to begin by assigning them, using them on that as-needed basis, and then potentially evolve back into a more regular basis, but I'm leaving that to Mrs. Jenks and to the middle school teachers as to, and the teachers, to be honest with you, were very pleasantly pleased that it did not create an impact of instruction by having the backpacks in the rooms. So that's something that we will look at.
now, and I also know like 3rd through 5th grade, they don't get really like a locker combo, but they get like a locker.
Yes, they are going to utilize those because they're just right outside the classroom. The teachers will regulate
Monitor.
their process. So again, we are never looking for 5 kids to be at the locker at the same time,
Right,
okay, because of distancing. But if the teacher is regulating how that works, then they would be able to put their items
okay.
in there.
And then lastly, if a whole class gets quarantined, you said, because of COVID, but you do have, let's say you have the 5 children, I'm just gonna use this number, you have 5 children in a class that are vaccinated. Those children, even though maybe 15 of the kids are not vaccinated, those 15 would have to stay home, but we still are going to allow those 5 other children to come into the building.
Correct.
Even if they're sitting on the computer the whole time, but they're still gonna be allowed to come
Correct.
into the building.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We will not exclude anybody. Our goal is as many in the seats every single day as much as possible. So we would
Great.
not look to exclude because others had to be.
Okay,
That is not something we would look at.
that's it, I'm done,
That was good.
it's over.
You reserve the right to come back again.
All right,
I might too.
all right.
I have three or four. So I know we've talked about Genesis v. Power School in the past, but since I'm told we're up to maybe 18 people on our YouTube, can you just share just the benefits? I mean, now that this is going to be real as of Friday at 9:01 a.m. or whatever it is, what are we looking forward to? What can parents expect? Difference between going to a new platform now?
So the new platform is, from my experience, and I had Genesis in my prior district, I feel that Genesis is much more user-friendly. It will allow a couple of things. From the parent standpoint, it still is a parent portal. So at the middle school level, they will still have access to the grade book. They will have access to seeing the student work. Our teachers are getting training on it. And I say that saying, please be patient and be kind.
Yeah.
Because our teachers are brand new at this as well, and they're getting training on it on our second professional day in September. So it will allow parents to see the assignments. It will allow them to update their contacts throughout the year, where in Power School, it had to happen at the very beginning of the school year, and that was really it. Everything else had to go through. They can update phone numbers, they can update emails. And Mr. Whitaker, with his technology magic, has already linked it to our school messenger, so that if you update your email, it will then update in our school messenger, and it becomes kind of a regular flow. Parents can enter in student absences. So if your child is going to be absent for the day, their parent can enter it in, they can give a reason, it then goes to our main office. The office secretaries will look at that and be able to then enter it into the system. So it will hopefully alleviate some of those phone calls that have to be made. As we're doing for the reopening, we can send out parent forms and parent information. So, and for the district side, we have the ability to make forms mandatory. So until you sign this form, you may not have access to grades or other things, which is
Yes.
901. Everybody's going to read the student handbook, I know, from cover to cover before they click yes. But it allows us to do those types of things. We will be releasing report cards at all grade levels through the parent portal. From the special education side, we have the ability to send out student progress reports through the parent portal as well. And again, we are going to build to all of this. This is our first year, so it may not all flow immediately, but these are the potentials of what it allows us to do. One of the biggest things for us as a district is Genesis is a New Jersey-based company. So as updates come out, for example, Start Strong, they are already working on how to create the best upload for us to be doing that data entry and upload to the state. As NJ Smart comes out with different requirements, they do nightly updates. So they address those issues, and they have been, just as a plug to the company, I mean, they have been receptive, and they have been there for training, no matter whether it's a 15-minute training, an hour-long training. They have been on the phone at least 5 times on meetings over the past week just on scheduling, because it's brand new for us. So they are holding our hands, and they are walking us through every piece of it. Very patiently, I might add.
I assume parents will do their monthly attestation through Genesis as well.
Yep.
And any uploading of vaccination paperwork cards through Genesis.
Yes, we built that in, I think we could upload.
We opted not to, we wanted the hard copy.
Oh, is that, okay. So we may be looking at actually getting the hard copy of the vaccination card. I'll see that with the nurses, but the attestation and all the other pieces
Okay.
will be happening through there.
And is it an app, or is it mobile web, or is it both? Is it an actual iPhone and Android app?
If you don't mind, Mr. Whitaker, I'm going to let you answer that one for me.
Sorry, Jay.
It's 100% web, no app. Works on every platform, looks exactly the same, has a nice adaptive page performance. So phone, tablet, computer, it's all going to look the same.
Oh, good.
Okay, but it's mobile web, it's not an actual application, is what you're saying?
Correct, yeah. It's all, so you'd access, if you're on an iPhone, you use Safari. If you're on Droid, you use Chrome or whatever browser you choose on your
Got it.
mobile platform.
Bookmark it and do your thing. Yep.
Yep, and we also put a button on the school homepage for the parent login, so if anybody doesn't want to memorize the address, they can always just go there and click the button and get right to it.
Okay. Great.
Thank you, sir. All right, one or two others unrelated to Genesis. And you may want to just punt on this one, but back to the lunch process that I'm trying to visualize. So knowing
am I.
that
Just saying.
knowing that there's free lunch for those who want it, And I assume students can show up and make that decision day of.
Mm-hmm.
I have a kid who was sent with lunch, and that kid came home with other lunch, somebody,
Mm-hmm.
right? There was a stack of orange juices in the fridge.
Yes.
So, how, I guess maybe it's more of a Masha's way, but how do we prepare for that from like an order taking,
Yep.
and then delivery to, if every single student wants, he or she gets?
Yep, and we've had that conversation.
Okay.
Mr. Slam and I and the principals, we've had these conversations with Mashios. And just a plug to the 18 people on YouTube or anybody else who's watching, if you would like to work for Mashios, they are looking to hire lunch aides. If you would like to work for the YMCA, they are looking to hire after-school helpers so that we could expand the aftercare program. And if you just want to be with us for fun in the lunchroom, we're looking to hire lunch aides. So anything around there, we're open. Our doors are open. So we spoke with them. So really what they're looking at is it'll be an everyday Google form that's filled out in the homerooms, and that's our typical process. They will be, that's why we're doing limited options to begin with.
Yep.
They will be coming in early, they will be pre-packaging. So, and then keeping them in warmers. Okay, so they have like a one, if your child brought home last year where it had like a plastic seal over it to be reheated, they will use some of those, they will use clamshell items. So they will be prepackaged, and then we will be training our staff who's working in the classrooms, whether it's a lunch aide, whether it's a teacher who's overseeing lunch, there are ways that it has to be delivered. Because, again, it has to be delivered quickly, and we have to keep
Right.
it within certain temperatures.
Multiple locations now, too. Yeah.
And multiple locations. So yes, it is going to be, that is why I say this is our biggest undertaking without a doubt.
Yeah,
And it's going to require a whole lot of us to roll it out well.
yeah. This will be, once it's down pat, this will be a fun time lapse to watch as the food moves around. Yep. Okay, two more quick ones. So on the orange, okay? So just to clarify, so you're saying we are now, as of this week, we are yellow back to orange?
Mm-hmm.
And so does that mean that on the exclusion criteria slide, any number that was 7, 8, 10 is now 14, essentially?
Correct.
Got it, okay.
Yep.
So ignore the old, we are orange, so it defaults to the 14 days.
Yes. And that was confirmed by the Health Department and the DOH guidelines that we talked about today during a meeting.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Yep.
And the last question I had was just, so when we get to academic support, and targeted supports and like, for example, like enrichment, G&T, how will this work in sync with Strong Start? So, I know testing is September, October, right? So will we be waiting until after Strong Start to be making assessments, or that starts like right out of the gate?
We have student data from last year.
Got it, okay.
So we will be utilizing data from last year to start right out of the gate.
Okay.
We want to provide that for our students. We will be using the Start Strong information, which will be standards-based, and it really comes back with saying potentially needs strong support, may need some support, shouldn't need much support. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that information comes to us, but we will also be utilizing our regular benchmarking that we've used for the past couple of years, which is iReady and Lincoln.
Okay.
So it is not our goal to test our children endlessly, but it is important for us to get this information so that we can utilize it to target our instruction.
I think, look, I'll say what I'm sure most are thinking, that, I think it's great, and obviously there's this is as critical a year as, most American school children will ever have, so it's the analysis part, but it's also like, how quickly can we get back to where we want them to be and ahead? It's a catch-up year for a lot of students.
Yep.
so
Yep.
love that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm out. Good.
Okay?
Other question?
All of mine have been answered between the two other board members.
Nicely
I
done.
know, next time we should start over here.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a
I have to say something, though.
Karma's handling up first, and then we just.
yeah,
Say something.
I'm fresh out of
Counterclockwise.
questions. Fresh out.
Are you done?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah, they're all
so I want to say thank you for putting this slideshow together. I know that it's ever-changing document. I know it's probably will change tomorrow, who knows? But I also wanted to thank you for making the paperwork once a month, because when you don't fill it out at 7:30, every single phone in my
Oh,
house
yes.
rang.
Yes,
So thank you. That will be done through Genesis, you
Yes.
said? Once a month, one per student.
correct.
One per student. Another thing, okay, so you said that the cafeteria was going to be utilized, the APR, some rooms. Are we going to rotate, let's say, some students that are in APR this month, will they use the cafeteria next month?
Yes, that is our ultimate goal. Unfortunately, we do have a little bit of a limitation where we do have some overlapping of grades, where there's some grades that may be in the classroom a lot.
Okay,
But that's, where we would first start are, can we get them outside?
okay.
Can we have them, look at some of those opportunities? And again, please, as I say before, and very much to Jordan's point just now, I don't see that happening in the first couple of weeks because we have to get all the rest of that down. But as quickly as we can, we want to expand those opportunities. And yes, if wherever there can be a rotation, we would utilize that. As a matter of fact, I believe Mrs. Vierscheling already sent out a rotation
Just
for
a change of
Beechwood.
scenery for the kids.
Of course.
And then food is
Of
getting
course.
delivered to them, because I'm thinking, picking up lunch over there in the cafeteria, coming to APR, they'll have a total of 5 minutes to eat, so food will be delivered.
We're taking a look at it. Depends upon their grade level.
Okay,
And how quickly we can maneuver them. Obviously, it's faster for us if the children can get through the line and do so. So there's also been some talk about that. But again, I think all of that will get massaged as we
Oh, I'm
live
sure.
through this.
There'll be a lot of ironing
Yeah.
in September. So
Yep.
number of lunches have not changed and time slots have not changed.
Number of lunches, there was at least one additional, if not two additional lunch slots that are in there. But I believe that I shared that when we had our reopening committee, and took a look at that. So that's something that I can take a look and see about finding.
Okay, and one last thing. I
Sure.
know that, I know we have amazing teachers here in Mountainside. One concern is our curriculum is not changing, and our students are coming in, they're taking this test. How are we going to address, like, the students that are going to fall, that gap that they've missed?
And it absolutely
Because
is.
our curriculum doesn't change.
No,
It doesn't change anyway.
and listen, it's the same for every district that's out there. So it is it's a fine balancing act, and it's one that we have already talked about regarding best utilization of our reading specialist, our math specialist, our AIM teachers, looking at the data and targeting what standards can we bundle together in order to look at that. And that is something that is very, very critical for us, because we want to make that up and then move forward. So we have to look at how do we then say, okay, they might have been missing this piece. Does it align with another standard that is grade level appropriate, and therefore we expand on that standard versus teaching things in isolation? So we look at that. With math, it's much more pinpointed, because there's underpinnings of skills that need to be known first in order to be able to advance. But we need to take a look at the students as they come in and see where those gaps are to assess the best way to provide that instruction.
And one last question, I promise. I think I said it one last, but I just thought about this. We're very fortunate that we are able to have 6 feet between each student. What is our average class size in, let's say, middle school?
So right now, we were just looking at, Mrs. Jenks and I were looking at, just looking at something right here, there we go. Mrs. Jenks and I were just looking at the Genesis today. Right now, before things get changed, we are looking at a max of 21.
Wow.
And there may be, we just got another, 6th grade seems to be, everybody who's moving into Mountainside is a 6th grader, just saying. 6th grade or 1st grade? Those seem to be our 2 large grades right now. May go to 22, but that is where we're at. We know that our classrooms, we have walked our classrooms, with the exception of a few. Science lab is a little bit unique just because of its layout, but our typical classrooms, 20 desks at 6 feet, right there. So when we're talking 21, again, we are looking at a compression maybe down to 5.5 front to back. Looking at those with masks, we could go to 3, but we're nowhere close to that.
Great.
So that's where we're standing at this point.
good, thank you.
Yep.
I remember my other question. You mentioned that in the middle school grades, if 5 students do not test positive, right? The teacher's going to teach remotely, right? If I followed you. And the others will be allowed to come into school, right? Okay, here's the question. How do we teach those, say 5, 10 come in, how do we teach the others? Are they gonna have a substitute?
No.
work in the
The
remote?
teacher, if the teacher is vaccinated as well, the teacher's in school. So it would revert back to the synchronous instruction that we had last year.
Okay,
So unfortunately, the students in school would predominantly be on a computer because the teacher's time is completely divided
right,
between
that's what I was thinking,
teaching.
but I thought
Yeah.
you weren't gonna do
While it's
that.
not the most ideal, and we know this from our experience, which is why it's never our preferred. We want that live teaching to be valid and as much as possible, but we also would not keep children who are vaccinated at home and
right.
not allow them the opportunity to
Yeah,
be here in
that's
school.
what I was
Yep,
concerned about.
yep, absolutely. So we have, just very quickly, I'm just looking if I can. Trying to get this from a bird's eye view.
Yourself a question?
No, somebody asked me about lunches, so I just wanted to see real
I can't
quick.
get
the
out
time.
You can't get the joke without the answer.
1, 2, 3. So last year, I believe, in a typical year, there were 3 lunch periods. There's now 4 lunch periods with some overlap, which again is why there's some classes that are going to just need to be utilizing classrooms. But by doing even 4, first lunch starts at 10:46, and the last lunch starts at 12:54. So to go beyond that,
Yeah.
like I said, I mean, that would put our first lunch starting at 9:58.
Right.
If we expanded beyond that, or not starting till 1:30. So that's just not right
No.
for the kids, for the
Yeah.
programming, for everything else. So
Right.
we put it in there, and that's where it's working the best for all of that.
Yeah, those lunch numbers are normal in high school, 10:55 the first lunch, last lunch 12:40, 12:50. So
Okay?
they would
All
get
right.
used to it earlier.
And
All
that
right.
concludes that.
That concludes that. Thank you very much.
All right, awesome. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Slam for the business administrator's report.
I just have a few things tonight. I want to give a quick update on some projects that have been occurring over the summer. The Beechwood sidewalk has been completed. The Deerfield paving repairs have been completed. And then for the STEM Phase 1, the furniture has been delayed. But I spoke with Wayne, and we have enough furniture in place to use until we get that in district. And that's actually a manufacturer delay, which is something that's kind of across the industry occurring right now. But I'll keep everyone updated on that as we gain additional information. Tonight, we do have, I'll go move to the next item. Tonight, we do have a refunding ordinance on for approval. Essentially, this would be us going out for our 2014 series of bonds. That's a referendum from 2014, and taking advantage of some favorable interest rates that are currently available to us. So I have a bit of a breakdown. I can provide some information on that. So the new bond amount would be $13,150,000. The estimated savings would be $663,000 over the life of the debt service. And if things move forward tonight, the estimated completion for the refunding would be November 2021. And in the attachments, there is an estimated timeline of what some of those events would be. We also have the approval for the bond council agreement on for approval tonight as well. And then just a little bit of an update for the 2021 audit. I have received a preliminary request for some reports and documentation, and we anticipate that that will start in mid-October. And then something that's not on my agenda, but I just want to mention it, we received the signed contract for Durham, and I will be getting that to the county for approval this week. And that's everything I had. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
just one, on the refinancing, as I'll call it, on the bond front.
Yep.
So you said 663K total savings, so that will be over, is that over 10-year window, or is that over
It
what's
goes-
the lifespan of that saving?
Goes to around 2034.
Okay,
So it's not really, I think the change in timeline is only of 1 or 2 months of what we'll be paying now
Okay.
into the future, so it'll be a little bit farther out, but only a couple of months. And that savings would actually include, the cost of us going out. Because, there's going to be a bond attorney, basically a bond counsel cost, financial cost. We have to get a rating from Moody's, so there's a cost associated with that. There'll be some costs associated with our auditor and some things that we'll have to get in that process. And, in terms of these estimates, I've been working with our financial partner, and these are conservative estimates. So they're shooting for, hopefully we come in under that. They don't want us to be in a situation where we come in over. But again, I guess you never know what's going to happen. But that does include those costs.
and the savings is spread somewhat evenly, I guess, over that, whatever window would be, from 2021 fall through to 34, so 13-year window. It's a,
Yeah.
whatever the savings would be, 600 plus K, where it's an even spread essentially that we're saving, versus like a front-loaded savings or
So it's not gonna be front loaded. It would be over the life
life
of the
of
debt
that
service.
Okay.
And it would be 663,000 over the life. If you look at present value, it's 612,000 in today's dollars is what we'd
Got
be
it.
saving.
Got it.
Because you always account for, time value of money.
Yeah. It's huge. I mean,
But it's a big savings.
Yeah.
And I honestly, the rates are very low right now. I don't necessarily foresee them going lower, and if it did, then we're all in a bad situation anyway,
Sure. Right.
because they're at historic lows. So I think
Got
it
it.
is a good way to save some taxpayer money.
Yeah.
Just as a reminder to everyone, the debt service schedule is basically in addition to the 2% tax levy each year for the budget, and this was approved during the referendum process. So when that referendum was approved, each year until that is paid off, we are approved to raise funds to pay both the interest and the principal towards that referendum. So essentially, since this is a lower interest rate, what that is doing is just saving us money on interest over the life of the debt service amount.
And just as a point of reference for the board, this is something we did with the referendum.
Right.
It's actually coming off the
2011.
book.
Yep.
So this is the second time the district has, let's call it refinanced.
Yep.
The bond, so it's, thank you for continuing a practice that we've done in the past, so I appreciate it.
Always want to save money.
Absolutely, absolutely. Are you done?
Yep, that's everything I have.
Awesome. So now we'll turn it over to Mr. Hyman for the Berkeley Heights Liaison Report.
You bet. So Berkeley Heights Board of Ed, we met last on August 12th. Next meeting will be September 9th at Columbia Middle School. Just a couple of quick updates. Dr. Varley, superintendent, released similarly a batch of details on the 13th about the Berkeley Heights reopening plan, and full details are on the Berkeley Heights website. We did have an agenda item for the 8/12 meeting to take action on Dr. Varley's contract, but that was removed and will be revisited and should be on the agenda for September 23rd at this point. And then I wanted to just quickly share, because Dr. Varley went through their district goals, and as it applies to parents of GL students. So 5 district goals for Berkeley Heights. I'll just tick them off quickly. One, they will be performing an audit of board policies and job descriptions, and will revise 100% of policies and job descriptions that need to be updated. 2, they'll be implementing successful full-day kindergarten. 3, the district will be conducting a gap analysis and will develop and implement a plan to address those gaps. It's tied into Strong Start. 4, in continuing with Berkeley Heights Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Initiative, the district will implement actionable items from the DEI task force that impact curriculum and recruiting. And then 5, they will be implementing the collaborative consultation model special ed in 100% of the grades from 6 through 12. So that's all of the high school. And I just wanted to note that there will be, at this point, there's scheduled to be a full presentation on that collaborative model at the October Berkeley Heights Board of Ed meeting, open to the public. So for anyone interested in what that is and how it works, there will be a presentation from Michelle Gardner at that meeting. So more details to come as we get them. And that concludes my liaison report.
Thank you very much. Okay. So at this time, I would ask for a motion to approve under administration items 1 through 6.
Jim, do you want building and
I'll,
finance?
I'll, in a minute.
Okay.
Yep. Administration items 1 through 6.
Oh, Jim, hold on.
Yep.
Just, Mike,
Oh,
with Jordan,
Yeah,
will
sorry.
Berkeley Heights come and will they invite our 8th grade parents to the meeting, or is it gonna be open, the meeting, for consultative? Like,
There'll be a presentation to the full public and,
Okay.
YouTube live stream, same thing. So it's not, at this point, there's been no mention of a specific presentation to Mountainside or to, an 8th grade level. But it will be a full open board presentation.
Okay.
And if
Thank
we're
you.
aware of it, then we'll be happy to share that through the special education department, that there will be a presentation during the public board meeting. And if you are interested in learning more or hearing about it, please attend the Berkeley Heights board meeting.
That would be great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Jim, sorry.
not a problem. So again, motion to approve under administration items 1 through 6.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Dillon? Dr. Grudy CiPietro?
Yes.
Mr. Hyman?
Yes.
Ms. Pupo?
Yes.
Mr. Ruban?
Yes.
Ms. Shiano?
Yes.
Mr. Vennis?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion to approve under budget and finance items 1 through 12.
Okay.
Hang on one second.
So moved.
You-
Second.
At this time, we're going to have an update from Mr. Venice on the
Yeah.
items 6 and 7, which were discussed in committee.
Right, we discussed it on 8/12, August 12th, and one of the issues that came up were sport club fees and club fees, and we decided to keep the fees the same. And if we could look back in 2/12, 2/13, we had fees of, for one sport, $425. Our fees now is $190, so we held the line. And club activities back then was $85 and $40, and we held the line there too with $40. So that was good, I thought, under these circumstances. Ray also talked about the finances, and he gave a more accurate data, but the day we were going over it, there was a savings roughly, I think, came up with $678,000. Then we had fees for the bond attorney and so forth, and the savings came roughly to 610. You said 612, I think?
Yeah, there was a slight
Yeah,
adjustment.
okay, it was close, and it's good, that's very good. We could use the money. We could always use the money. And the other issue that came up, we tried to be a little proactive.
Hold that one. Hold that one. We're not voting.
Oh, yeah, we didn't get there
Yeah,
yet.
we're not voting
I'm
on that.
sorry, right.
I'm trying here. We're going to work through.
Yeah, that-
Say again, you said 2012, 2013?
Yes.
What, the athletics?
Yeah, they were high, we were broke then. Really, we were broke. No, we had
It's
problems,
not even close.
right?
100%.
And so we had some high fees, really. And you know what happened? A lot of parents didn't sign their kids up for the sports. And we had trouble fielding teams because we didn't have the enrollment. And I can understand. And that was back then. And so that's another reason we're keeping them low, because we want to see the numbers. We want more students to participate, and I think that's good. And also, we give a discount if you have more than one child. I have the schedule, but I'm not going to read it to you. But if anybody wants to see it, I have it here. Okay.
Awesome. Any other comments and questions on budget and finance items?
Jim, our number 5, do we know, or Janet, are those all flat year over year, or is there a change on any of the
Sorry, give me one
food costs?
second to get back to 5.
I mean, Capri Sun inflation, I don't know.
There are some slight increases.
Free sun inflation.
Yeah.
Just hitting my brain.
But you know,
However,
these
was
rates are good. When I
got a
talk to
lot of
other
carbon
people in other
monoxide.
schools, they're
Yeah.
paying a lot more.
They hadn't increased
For
them
lunch.
in a couple of years, so there's some slight increases on the à la carte items, which is, the snack items that you'd buy. Lunches, as we mentioned before, will be free to everybody. None of the increases were very substantial. All, as far as I know, less than $1.
So lunch is gonna be free this year for the students.
Yep. Lunch will be free for every student for the entire year. However, I would ask that if there are any families that think they may qualify for a free and reduced lunch, please still fill out the application, because that does directly affect the school district's state funding. And it also would affect their ability to continue to get PEBT benefits, which is part of pandemic relief.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Dillon? Dr. Guidi CiPietro?
Yes.
Mr. Hyman?
Yes.
Ms. Pupo?
Yes.
Mr. Ruban?
Yes.
Ms. Shiano?
Yes.
Mr. Venus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion to approve our refunding ordinance, item 14. Item 1 in Roman numeral 14.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Dr. Guidi CiPietro?
Yes.
Mr. Hyman?
Yes.
Ms. Pupo?
Yes.
Mr. Ruban?
Yes.
Ms. Shiano?
Yes.
Mr. Venus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion to approve under personnel, items 1 through 10.
So moved.
Second?
Does the Personnel Committee have any items on here that they need to discuss prior to the vote?
Page primer is printed twice on here, just as an edit. Sorry,
Oh, that's not what I meant, but okay.
I know.
Okay, got it.
It's bothering me.
It's okay.
So,
Okay. I will cross her off. Any other comments or questions?
Question number 10. Great news that we found a replacement girls soccer coach. What does pending paperwork mean? Is that?
Just fingerprinting,
Okay,
background
check?
checks,
Okay,
all that.
got it. Okay. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Dr. Guidi CiPietro?
Yes.
Mr. Hyman?
Yes.
Ms. Pupo?
Yes.
Mr. Ruban?
Yes.
Ms. Shiano?
Yes.
yes.
Mr. Venus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion to approve under policy, item 1 for first reading, item 2 for second reading and adoption, and item 3 for abolition
So moved.
or abolishment.
Second.
Comments or questions?
Can I ask one question? This might be a simple one, Janet. So for, under number 1, for 3221, 222, and 223, there's, in all of them, there's a change of dates from August 1 to June 1 for the evaluation rubrics. Is that just sort of from a scheduling perspective? Is there a reason for that?
I have no idea why.
Yeah,
And I think it may have gone did it go from August to June or June to August? I'd have to go back and look at the policy of it.
I thought I thought it was,
It may have been.
maybe.
But there was no rationale provided in the update that I received regarding why
Okay,
that was a change from the state level.
okay.
Mine's not loading.
Yeah, I was trying to find where.
Yeah, it went from June 1st to,
Oh, here it is.
August 1.
Yep.
To August 1.
to August 1st, yep.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it may simply have been that it gives the district longer if they are looking to change their evaluation process or look at any changes in it, it gives them the summertime, but still keeps it in place in time for September.
Got it, okay. The other question I had was on number 2, under 7243, the construction supervision. And there's language in there that, as I read it, basically says, we're now sort of mandating criminal history checks for anyone that would work in schools. Was that not in place prior? I would have assumed it would have been, but I don't
So
know.
looking, that was in place prior, whether or not they've changed.
Sorry,
I thought that was a state mandate.
Yeah.
that's what I thought, but I don't know if it's because like they put the onus on someone else, there's some language about, like architect came out, but then, like, any staff, any contracted member or member of a contractor who would, I'm trying to find the exact language, who would.
Right, and they may have kind of broadened it from that perspective, but we have always, we've been following through some of those practices prior anyway.
Well, I believe if you're gonna be pre-qualified to do any work as a contractor, that's all part and
Yeah.
parcel.
That was my assumption.
No, like if you wanna work in the schools, you gotta get pre-qualified by a couple agencies.
You have to be fingerprinted too?
That I'm not sure.
I know.
I mean,
They have to have no
I
criminal
didn't-
history
Any employee of
record
the-
information
Right.
on file with the Federal Bureau of Investigation
That's right.
Identification Division.
Right.
So, and it is on the, contractor to have that information, to have the details of
There
it,
it is,
and
yeah.
then it falls to this, the business administrator to make sure that there is verification of all of that information.
Yeah. Yeah, I just asked because it looked like text that was add to policy versus revision. So I was wondering, if it's not replacing something, was it there before in some other language, which,
Right, and whether or
Yeah.
not it was in a different
Right.
policy.
okay, thank you.
No problem. Roll call, please.
Had to get back to the page.
Sorry.
That's okay. Dr. Goody CPietro?
Yes.
Mr. Hyman?
Yes.
Ms. Pupo?
Yes.
Mr. Rubian?
Yes.
Ms. Shiano?
Yes.
Mr. Venus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Old business this evening.
The committee report.
Yep.
Okay. One of the other things that we discussed at the Finance and Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting was we tried to be proactive regarding usage of facilities. We have 5 categories. And the school system gets first priority, and then we work down with the various groups, the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, the Mountainside Foundation, and so forth. And what we tried to do is reaffirm the different groups and the different fees. And so there's no problem, because once September starts, I'm sure we'll get requests for fail usage, use of the auditorium, use of the facilities. And so we try to firm that up where we have a procedure and a fee, and then we discussed it. And we have this, I have the scale here if you'd like to see it, of what it cost. Is there anything else?
The other one was we discussed the Joint Field Use Committee, I believe, right?
Right.
Yes, and I will be.
then putting that together, because that's something that we used to do a lot, and just discuss, have all the organizations that utilize the fields and the buildings in the district get together. We used to have them get together, just sort of meet, discuss, talk about, scheduling and all the things that we do. And that sort of fell away for a long time. We've been trying to put that back in, just to, to just have everybody sit down and say,
Yep.
this is our schedule, this is what we do, and such.
Yep, and I will be looking to get that onto the calendar within the next month or
It's
so.
something we've been talking about for the last couple of years, but haven't implemented. So I
Right.
think we were
Yep.
trying to say, let's get that together so everybody's,
And we had some of our biggest turnouts
yes,
regarding,
always,
always, right, fields.
yes.
It was standing room only. And so we're trying to be a little proactive.
Right.
Did our fees change for any of the tiers?
No.
Or-
No, they
All-
remain
also
the same. In the policy that
Yep.
was being approved, the
Yep.
only thing that changed was there was that wording correction that had
Right.
come
Yep.
up.
Yep.
That had been the question. And to your quick question, just, I know we're kind of beyond it, but I just pulled up our current 7243.
Yeah.
And there's no wording in here whatsoever about background checks or fingerprinting.
But do they have an ordinance? Sometimes they'll just throw an ordinance in, but not throw the words.
Nope.
No, they don't even have an ordinance.
No, and I just kind of did a search on contractors
Surprising.
and other stuff. But my recollection actually had been the same as you, Jordan, that I thought that that was part of it. It may be embedded in a different policy, I'm just not pulling up right now at my fingertips, but I had been my recollection that if any outside group anywhere has is working someplace that has regular contact with children, they had to have verification of background check and
Sure.
fingerprinting.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
If there's no other committee reports, with that, I'll open the floor to public participation on any topic. Again, please come to the podium, state your name and address prior to making a statement or asking a question. Don't all rush at once. Seeing none, we will be having a second exec tonight. We will not be returning to take any action. So with that, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn to a second exec.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to exec. See you next month.